Oh, I'll get this on recording too. Can you say your name for me too, just because to make sure when I'm doing the intro, I
Sure. Yeah, it's Emilie Leyes, like eyes with an L.
Lies. Okay. Yeah, I would have
Yeah,
said Lees or something. So Emilie
I get
Lies.
it all. Yeah.
Okay. So I like starting with high school. You can go even
Oh.
further, but I think that just that time is such an interesting time of life and complex, but also where we're really trying to figure out like who we are. And it can feel like I have to choose this one thing. Like, what am I going to
Mm.
be when I grow up? What am I going to do after high school? What am I going to study or this, whatever? So, like, a little bit about your high school time and if you had any sort of ideas about what you were going to do with your life.
Ooh, I had so many ideas. That's a big part of me. I'm always full of ideas of possibilities and things to do. I grew up in a really small town in South Central Pennsylvania. I lived next to an alpaca farm and a horse farm, and it was a very small minded town as well. But I always was just full of ideas, trusted that I would have some kind of impact on the world in some way. And I did not know what that was. So in high school, I jumped around from wanting to be a veterinarian, wanting to be an environmental lawyer. I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be a choir teacher. And then towards the end of my high school career, I discovered acting and I discovered musical theater. So that was really where I got that spark of like, yes, this is it. This isn't just an idea, and this is what I want to do. Um, and I always felt like my purpose was bigger than the town that I lived in. So I I dove straight into acting and performing and storytelling because I felt like I had such an impact in helping people feel things. And that really became my why very early on. And I didn't name that for myself until much later, but I loved helping people feel better and helping people feel things in some way. So
What does
that
that
be
look like? So, like, yeah, going back, because
yeah.
now, same thing when I'm talking back about my life, I'll like, I obviously
Yeah.
didn't use this words at the
Right.
time, but at the like now I can look back and see like that's what was happening. But when you're saying you felt like, or you knew like you had this ability to help people feel, or you wanted to, like, what did that, was it just from performing and then noticing how people reacted? Like, what did that actually look like back then?
I think that I was very intuitive and aware of the way that I impacted other people, whether that was just in conversation or in performance or in auditions or in even, choir rehearsals and things like that. I think that might be the neurodivergent side of me, which I know now. But I was very, very aware of all of the nuances of the conversations I was having, and I was paying really close attention to the way that people responded to everything that I did. And I think that I realized that because in theater, the stakes are so high and you raise the stakes and the emotional experiences are so heightened in performance, there's a much greater ability to then heighten the emotional changes that you're seeing in the people responding to you, if that makes sense. So I started realizing that, I did comedy musical theater and I noticed that the shift in people who were in the audience. They showed up and they were kind of bored, they were kind of tired and blah. And then 3 scenes in, they were laughing and their whole
Mm.
demeanor had changed. And I realized how powerful that is and how we can use imagination and stories to completely change how we're feeling and how the people around us are feeling. And I think I didn't name that, but I noticed it and I felt that energy and I was just completely drawn to it.
Wow. So
But
back
yeah.
then, it sounds like even in just conversations, like you're saying with people,
Mm-hmm.
like you were noticing how people responded to you, like, or if you were like, oh, okay, like, oh, I can see that makes them laugh, or that put them in a grad mood, or
Mm-hmm.
that maybe makes them anxious or whatever. But then also when you're performing on stage, you're noticing the audience, like it's not even because I make up a lot of performers, it's like how that makes them feel when they're on
Mm.
stage and they can just be lost in that character, whatever, right? But you were really focused on like, wow, look at the shifts in the audience and how that was like feeding you.
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything because I felt it too. I felt
Right.
like my empathy allowed me to channel the joy that I was helping them feel. And it became this kind of feedback loop between me and the audience and the other people on stage with me. And it just felt so magical that and I didn't understand it, and I didn't know how to put words to it, but I could feel myself getting lighter, and I could feel everyone around me getting lighter, and kind of just softening the space that I was in. And it just felt so powerful. And I just wanted more. I just needed more. And I felt like I had to keep doing it. And I didn't know how to do that. And the shows that we did were awful. I mean, it was like low budget, horrible costumes, horrible sets. We had no funding from the school. So our director paid out of pocket for everything. We had to get the boys from the basketball team to join just so that we had enough people on stage. So this was not high
You were
quality.
like at a performing arts high school. And
no. We were in like middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. But but I thought it was magic. So that's what mattered.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so then were you then like, this is what I'm doing with my life, you know, when high school is coming to end and everybody's like, oh, what are you doing next? Or this, or when also was that in your town? Cause I don't know, like for me, it was very much what's next. You're going to college, right? What are you studying? Where are you going? Whatever. Or then like, okay, you're not going to college because you're starting whatever. So you have this job here or something like that. Like,
yeah. So that was definitely the focus. Everybody was obsessed with what was happening next. And when people were getting into colleges and applying for colleges, my experience was very different because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I was the only person in my high school graduating class to pursue theater or performing arts in that way. So I had to go on, I think 12 or 13 auditions for colleges throughout that senior year experience. So I wasn't just writing the applications. I was also traveling all over the East Coast, in the car, taking, I think 17 days off of school to go and do this. And again, I come from a small town. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so confident. And looking back, I'm glad that I was, because I was very overly optimistic about the outcome. So I wasn't as scared of the competition and then the truth of what that industry really looks like. But yeah, so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I auditioned for theater schools all over the East Coast, and I just made it happen. And it was also very devastating because I didn't get into a lot of those schools because they take about 12 people per year, I think, and thousands of auditions. So, but that was also really important in helping me build resilience to be able to understand that, yes, this is hard. And yes, this is still what I want to do. So it kind of reinforced that drive of like, I'm just going to figure it out. Yeah.
And when you were doing the high school plays, like you said, your school didn't have like top-notch performing arts. Were you even playing like the leads?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, you were. Okay, so you at least had that, like, because I was like, I was like wondering, like you could have been also just in other parts of the cast and still, but this is what I know what I want to do. But so you also like, you were playing the lead. You had that sort of at least like confidence of, okay, I
definitely,
yes, the people in my class or whatever, I was named lead. But so you did get accepted somewhere.
Yes. So I ended up,
and I make up your parents supported you if they were driving you around to all of
yes. They were so supportive. And that's so great. Yes, I was very fortunate because I know a lot of people don't have that kind of support system.
You're going into the arts. Helps. That's not reliable. That's not safe. That's not.
Yeah. But I think they saw how much it lit me up when I did it. And so that was really useful. But yeah, I played the leads in the high school musicals and was Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. And, and I got that understanding of what it's like to carry a story. And I think that's what was also really inspiring because I felt like I had a story to tell and I had an interpretation of how to tell that story in a way that helps people feel things and helps people think about their lives differently. And
And so then what did you so you ended up going to a performing arts or focusing on performing arts in college. Did you graduate with a performing arts like degree, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yes. Yeah. So I applied for a lot of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the structure, but there's BFAs, there's Bachelor of Fine Arts, and then there's BAs. So Bachelor of Fine Arts is like the conservatory. You're just acting, singing, dancing every single day. I ended
Okay.
up going to a liberal arts school, Muhlenberg College, which was more academically focused. I was still acting, singing, dancing every day, but I also got the academic rigor that I think I really needed and I didn't know that I wanted. So it was a really fantastic program. I ended up graduating with a double major in vocal performance and acting. And at the same time, I also had the opportunity to take so many other classes and learn so much more about myself through these other fields. They really encouraged us to go beyond our majors. And so I took a lot of psychology classes and learned more about mental health and things like that, in addition to what I was doing in theater. And that really, I think, helped inform how I view the world more holistically, to be able to then share stories more authentically, because I had a deeper understanding of what I was interested in and who I was and how to orient myself in the world.
And so I presume anyone who studies musical theater in college, like then you're like going to Broadway or like, like that's the intention. Like you're in
Mm-hmm.
that and then great. Or not, not just Broadway, but like, yes, you want to be in
Yeah.
musicals, you want to be in theater. Not,
Mm-hmm.
not just musicals. I'm like, what
Yeah.
do they call them if they're not musicals? Just theater plays.
Place.
Yeah. I was like, like and that
Yeah.
did that waver at all while you're there or just continue to build? Like,
Yeah, so that was always the goal. I had my eye on the prize, and that was very much what I wanted to do. But toward the end of my senior year, that it was still my goal, but I started getting very, very ill. I developed chronic fatigue syndrome. I was fortunately able to graduate, but by the time I graduated, I was just so exhausted all the time and so sick that I wasn't able to pursue that directly after college. So that
oh, so
was,
you graduated, but
I
then sort
did.
of like body shut down, I make it.
Yes, completely. Yeah, my body entirely shut down. I had to move back in with my parents, and I saw dozens and dozens of doctors that said, this is incurable and you'll have this forever. And I had other doctors saying, your blood work looks great, go live your life. And I was bedbound essentially at that point in my life. And I was unable to go for a walk, let alone get on a stage or go to an audition. So that was really, really difficult um, to sit with, because I spent so much time having my eye on this on this dream that I had focused on for years and years, and to have that be taken away potentially forever was really, really, really awful.
And so at that time, they were able to diagnose you like it's
Mm-hmm.
chronic fatigue syndrome, and they were
Mm-hmm.
basically like, this is it.
Yeah, there was not much they could do. There's things that can help people manage symptoms, but it's considered incurable in this medical field currently. So I started seeking out other options and other modalities, and I started seeing a holistic health coach who had a background in nutrition and also psychology and understanding the mind body connection, and that's where I was introduced to the concept of brain training. So
Mm.
it was kind of in passing, but she introduced me to this brain training program that was specifically designed for chronic mystery illnesses like what I had, like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, POTS, let me see, irritable bowel syndrome, long COVID, I think is also in that category now.
I have a
Yeah.
friend that was diagnosed with Lyme last year, and I think that
Yes.
was one of the things, which also, so I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I was 18.
Okay.
But so my journey, like, yeah, mine was different. So I went through high school. I mean, I remember childhood too, but like definitely in high school was a lot of like going to all sorts of specialists, just like
Mm-hmm.
this, upper lower GI, like stomach, urinologist. Like we went to just
Mm-hmm.
so many doctors because again, it wasn't like one thing, and it wasn't
Right.
like there's no
It's
blood work or
systemic.
that and
Yeah.
that. And I had migraines, but I went to a chiropractor for that, and that like helped. But anyway, so I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which uh when it was first becoming a term from like somebody that was
Mm-hmm.
just out of med school, and they gave me a bunch of pills, and then I went off to college and the
Okay.
pills messed me up. Like you made me worse. Um, or they didn't make me worse, but yes, they gave me more symptoms in some ways. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
groggy and this, whatever. Anyway, so I like then too was just like, I have to find that. But I had a sort of different where, so it's interesting. You were like on this path, I'm going to be music theater. And then it's like sort of taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I, at an early age, so even like at 15, I considered stopping my life because I was
Mm-hmm.
miserable in my body, but also like in life. I was just like, I was like, why we make everything so much harder. Like I realized I was spending so much time and energy. What do people want from me? Like wanting to be accepted. So like answering a question of like, what's your favorite song would be like so complicated for me. Cause like, what do they want to hear? Like, what would be the right
Yeah.
answer? What's the cool song right now? What's this? Like, I couldn't just like that, like, like, or even like, is it, do I raise my hand or not? Is being smart good or not? Like, everything was like so challenging. So I like at that time was like, okay, I can't do anything about the physical pain. Again, this is me intellectualizing it now. I can do something about the mental pain I'm causing myself. So I'm going to choose to live and I'm going to try it a different way where I try really hard to care more about what I think and want than what other people think about me. And that led me to wanting to pursue becoming a live sound engineer, even though I didn't know what it was called. I just would go to concerts, loved music. I wanted like the guitar is too loud. Can't hear the background singers enough and making it happen. But for me, it was like, because I had that passion, because I had something I really wanted to do, it made life worth living. And there was not young girls doing it. Like I forced my way in and like made it happen. And it was really challenging and complicated. But like what you were saying, earlier about something is like, like getting, like getting the nose or whatever, like built your resilience that I was like, it didn't matter what people said about me because this is what I wanted to do. And this is my life. And I had made the choice to live my life, not just be alive. So like I was able to, I noticed even like, I would feel miserable when I was doing things that I didn't want to, or didn't align, or when I was trying to please other people. But if I was doing the things I wanted to, it was easier for me to like work 18-hour days because I was doing things because I really wanted. But anyway, so the brain training thing I hadn't heard of until, even though, because I sort of like went through my own stuff before things became more known about, but I heard of brain training last year because my friend who is battling Lyme, that was one of the many things that was told to her. But can you explain like what it is? Because I feel like even when she like, is there like a map? She had like some map that she like walked in or something. And I was like, this sounds so simple that it's like, what the F are you talking about? Like,
yeah. It sounds too good to be true.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I definitely had a couple of days or weeks when I'd heard about it, just rolling my eyes at it, especially because the testimonials for these programs, people were like, I went from being in a wheelchair because I was dizzy all the time to rollerblading in 2 weeks. And I was like, this is just crap. But I tried it. I signed up for it. And essentially, it's based on the idea that these chronic illnesses, these chronic syndromes are caused by dysregulation in the body, and the brain being stuck in a sort of trauma loop that is not able to get out. So we're stuck in a sort of low-grade chronic fight or flight mode. And that takes place in the limbic system, if you want to get fancy with the brain stuff. But essentially, the limbic system just continually sets off this alarm bell that something is wrong, there's some kind of threat, and we stay in this space of survival mode, essentially. And when that happens, when we're in a stress response, or when let's say we're back in early human evolution and there's a tiger that's chasing us, we go into this stress response that mobilizes us to fight off this predator, run away, or freeze. And when that happens, a whole bunch of physiological changes happen in the body. So that shuts down non-essential systems, including things like the digestive system, the immune system, hormone regulation, our ability to focus and think rationally and cognitively. In addition to that, our pupils dilate and our hearing intensifies, and a lot of blood and energy is rushing out to our extremities, helping us to fight and run. And all of these things are happening. And at the same time, all of our muscles are tensing and contracting so that we're able to do all of these very physical tasks. And that's only supposed to last for a couple of minutes. as a way to help us survive and conserve energy, because we don't want to be digesting food when we're running away from a tiger. We don't want to be, our bodies don't want to use that energy to fight off a virus when we are fighting for our lives. But unfortunately, with humans, because our lifestyles have changed and evolved so fast, our brains couldn't catch up. And now we're getting stuck in these chronic fight or flight states. So we will face a threat, a very real threat, like COVID, like exposure to Lyme disease, like, I don't know, food poisoning or an accident or some kind of physical trauma or emotional trauma. And we get stuck in this fight or flight state. And then our bodies stay shut down. And so our immune system just ceases to exist. Our digestive system is overactive or not active at all. Our ability to think rationally and focus on things diminishes. So that turns into brain fog and things like that. Our muscles stay tense and mobilized, which leads to chronic pain. Of course, this is an oversimplification of how these things work. There's much more to it, but basically the idea behind this specific brain training program that I did was that it trains the brain to, or it trains the limbic system to trust that there is no longer a threat present, and sort of puts it back into a state of regulation, which then allows the body to heal and allows the body to go back to functioning the way that it's supposed to when we're not fighting a tiger or running away from a tiger. And so, again, that's an oversimplification. I don't want to preach any kind of miracle cures. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of other treatments that are necessary for these things, but the practices are really self-hypnosis based. They don't use that language, but now as a hypnosis practitioner, I can recognize the patterns in it. And it's very focused on visualization. And that's really powerful because the subconscious mind and the limbic system doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And that part of the brain learns from experience. It doesn't necessarily learn from words or knowledge or facts. It learns from physiological experiences. So all of a sudden, we can use these tools to visualize what it would be like to face a trigger or face something that would trigger a flare-up in our illness and respond differently and respond feeling healthy and respond with a sense of calm strength and reducing that stress response. And that retrains the brain to no longer feel that a stress response is necessary in those circumstances. And over time, the more experiences we give our brains of regulation, of groundedness, of feeling okay, the more our bodies have time to regulate and then begin to heal. So for me, it was very, very fast. The recovery took about, I was about 50% better within a couple of weeks. And I went from being completely bedbound, wiped out from like taking a shower, to walking 10 miles a day and feeling incredible. And that just blew my mind because I thought it was just complete BS. And I thought that I was told so many times that I would not be able to get better. I wouldn't be able to have the life that I wanted. And all of a sudden, not only was my body feeling better, I was more focused. I was able to read again. When I was sick, I couldn't even process words on a page. I no longer had anxiety. I'd had panic attacks every single day. And when I started doing this work, they went away, and I haven't had one since because I have tools to be able to bring myself out of it.
Is that you had panic attacks every single day, like before even this onset? So, which might have led up to chronic fatigue.
Probably.
I'm like, that sounds fatiguing. No, I'm just not.
Seriously,
that has no medical background.
Seriously. Well, of course it is, because our bodies are processing threat so often that there isn't enough time to replenish the energy that it takes to get through that. So I had very bad anxiety in college, and especially when I was getting very sick, it was really, really unmanageable. I had depression as well. And all of a sudden I had all of this mental space to start thinking about other things. I wasn't thinking about my symptoms. I had the ability to no longer think in these like trauma loops and anxiety loops of what was worrying me and what was making me feel nervous in that moment. And I had this moment a couple of weeks into doing this program, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I don't know what to think about right now. because I have so much time and space to think. What do I do with this? So I started a theater company for a short period of time, but
So wait, so
no
this
longer
is
in existence.
you're moved, you're still living with your parents. You have started to like heal, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I have energy to think about things. So you started a theater company,
Yeah.
like where you lived
Yeah.
back in was
Yeah.
it or Pennsylvania?
That was that was
No, no.
in that was
Sorry.
in Philadelphia at the
Okay.
time. So
Okay.
I was in Philly at the time. Yes. I bounced around a lot, but yeah, that it flopped. We didn't take it anywhere, but I had the drive and
But yeah,
the
like that's
passion.
no, like not like okay, great, I'll go audition or like something
No,
like
I was like,
I
let
will
me start a
create
company.
my own theater.
Right. Like I said, I'm full of
Let me
ideas.
tip my
That is
toes back in or
right. Yeah, and that happened within weeks. I mean, it was just
wow.
unbelievable. And I got so many sparks of inspiration, and because of this program, that's what really got me into the work that I do now. And I started thinking about this at the time. As I mentioned before, the main principle of this program is that the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. And so as an actor, I started wondering, like, what does that do to our brains if we are performing trauma or stress or grief or
Oh.
anger or fear or sadness on stage? Our bodies are responding to that.
Right. Because you're
And
like putting
if
yourself in this place to express these emotions. And then, yeah, if your body doesn't know the difference, then it's like, yeah,
Mhm,
like the trauma of those experiences, like, yeah, you're putting your body through this stuff and it doesn't
mhm,
know, like, we're just putting on a show. Like,
right. It's thinking we're going through those circumstances. And then I was just like, this is messed up because I believe that I developed my chronic illness because of chronic stress, and I just had no way to manage it. I don't have any like big T traumas that I can point to that would bring me back to why I developed this condition, but I was so stressed all the time. I played a lot of really intense roles in college, and that's got to have an impact on our bodies. And so I started doing some digging into what's out there to help protect actors from this work, and other kinds of storytellers and artists who are delving into these deep emotions. And there's really not anything out there. There's
yeah,
no people don't
I was going to
care.
be shocked. I was like, I'm assuming there's nothing. What are you going to tell me you found? Like,
Right. There's
besides
like the
therapy, like, yes,
right,
which
of
not
course.
to
So
discount
important.
therapy, but yeah.
So important. Yeah. So therapy is really, really important and so helpful. And there are often psychologists on set
Oh, that's
in
great.
big movies that require a lot of deep kinds of trauma work.
Right.
But it's not, there's not much that's preventative. And there's not much in terms of helping people build resilience to be able to go in and out of character safely and not get the trauma from it rather than just processing it after. Yeah.
Right. Because also when you said that, I was like, oh, great, great. But also then are the psychologists on set to be able to help them tap into more of the trauma? Or are they helping them actually, you
Mm.
know what I mean? Like, is the psychologist on there to be like, oh, yes, this is how that person would experience it? Or are they helping the character actually move between the character or the
I
actor
think
move between the character and
I
themselves?
think that they're primarily there as psychological first aid, and if the
Okay,
actors are
good.
struggling, and there is a new amazing field. I don't want to discredit the work that's being done right now. There's some incredible work done in the field of intimacy coordination,
Yeah, I've been hearing
and
more about
they
that.
yes, and they choreograph intimate and violent scenes to help the actors feel safe and really make sure that they're consenting to what is being staged. And that's so important. And they do incorporate some self-regulation tools and practices to help actors get in and out of character more safely. So I don't want to I don't want to say there's nothing in
Right.
that. That's definitely more recent, but there's not much in terms of this specifically psychological and physiological experiences that are happening. Um, and there's not a ton of work done to help actors prepare for big roles and be able to just have that ongoing resilience to know what to do as they are performing and as they are navigating these challenging roles. So I became very interested in figuring that out for myself.
And so what, so you on sort of on a whim started this
Yeah.
musical theater company,
Yeah.
didn't work out, but then what did you do? What was your next move?
So my next move was I started doing research in brain science. I just consumed as much information as I possibly could in neuroscience, in the way that the mind-body connection works, in understanding how trauma and stress impacts the brain and body, in the context of imagination and storytelling. And I just read as much as I possibly could. And then, of course, I knew that I would need some formal training in being able to help people with that. So what happened after that? From there, I moved back to my hometown for a short period of time. And as I was doing this research in the brain science stuff, I did get back into acting myself. So that was awesome. So inspiring. I was a better actor than I'd ever been, because I'd been doing this kind of visualization and self-hypnosis work. And I was exploring these characters in conjunction with researching how we can train our brains, to be more creative, more confident, more resilient, more able to self-regulate. So I then got certified in positive psychology. I also got certified in positive neuroplasticity.
When you're saying certified, what is that, like going back to get like a master's or something?
It wasn't a master's program. It was a certificate program, but it was like I don't remember how long it was. I think it was a three course program through University of Pennsylvania that took me through, might have been more than that. That took me through how to use positive psychology in my own life and integrating it into my work.
Well, that's interesting to know, because I often will think about like, do I want to go like get a degree? And I'm like, I really don't want to like, like just let me get some letters. And I'm like, do I just take some courses so that like whatever. So, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know you could do like a positive psychology certificate.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic program. They go into a lot of depth in mindset and gratitude and grit and resilience. And I highly recommend that one. I am also certified in positive neuroplasticity, which I think you would honestly really love.
Like, send me the link, and I'm just gonna
that's through Dr. Rick Hansen, and that's really about priming the brain to take in the good, for lack of a better word, and take the positive experiences and inner resources that we already have access to in our lives and amplify them so that we're more changed by them. And it's a fascinating field. What else did I do?
And so while you were taking these like courses, were you like acting? Like, how were you living? Like, how were you affording to like pay your bills?
So I was also an office manager at a tax firm. So that was not a very...
You got like a day-to-day job, and then continued to act like in local theater and stuff. And then was also studying these things that you were really intrigued by at the same time.
Yeah. So I was paying the bills with a not so inspiring job as many of us do.
Saying that sort of stuff is important, because again, like the reason I have conversations and go into these like nooks and crannies with people is so like, it's not as if everything lays out for everyone. And they, it's like, how did you make it happen? You got an office job, and then you're interested in that, you're taking class, plus you're pursuing your passion, acting, like, like, I don't know. I think I want to be like, this is the reality of how
absolutely.
of how people make things happen. It's like, take a job that makes money, and then you can work on these things that you're interested in,
absolutely. Yes. I would not recommend the route that I took if anyone is trying to follow this path. Because I was working at a tax firm during tax season where we had 10 to 12 hour days, 10 to 12 hour days. And then I was driving an hour to Hershey, Pennsylvania to go to rehearsals every night for 4 hours, and then driving an hour home, getting home at midnight. So not awesome for the, the recovering chronic fatigue syndrome person, but, but I was so inspired, and I had the tools to be able to manage it at that point. And that was what I think was really important, and the difference that helped me be able to manage it, because I continued to use those mental practices and continued to check in with myself and self-regulate as much as I could through that stress, and also lean into the parts of what I was experiencing that lit me up, and really, like through positive neuroplasticity, really growing my awareness of how inspired I was to be in these shows, and how excited I was to be working on this research. Yeah. And it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. And that's the reality of, living while we're trying to pursue these kinds of things where there's no territory that we can follow.
Well, and it's like, it's just a chapter of your life too. Like,
Yeah.
not like, it's like not having to look of like, this is what I'm going to do have to do for the rest of my
Hmm.
life. It's like,
Right.
great,
It's
find
a
a
means
job
to an
that can
end.
pay you money. And then you can pursue these things also, or just like, whatever, like that's what's happening just right now.
For
And then,
sure.
like you said, like you're living through that passion of the play and what you're learning about. Like, yeah, you're like tapping into this excitement and joy and purpose and passion. Did I already say passion? If I said it twice, then that's perfect.
Hmm.
Like, passion, passion.
Right.
Elevates it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so what then? Yeah, what evolved from there? Because you're not in that
Hmm.
day job anymore.
Correct. I quit the tax firm because I got a work from home job that gave me more flexibility to
Nice.
really focus on what I wanted to be focusing on. At that point, I'd started doing little workshops in brain training and mental practices. So I did some workshops at schools and
Oh, so
nonprofit
you
organizations.
got it. So not online, you were like going out in
Hmm.
the world. And so to be able to do that, I assume, yeah, you're going to those schools and nonprofits, like,
Hmm.
let me teach you this thing. Can I offer
Yeah.
this workshop to your people?
Yeah.
Putting
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Like,
And I really, I got ahead of myself and I'm so glad that I did. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. I had no idea. I didn't know I'd never conducted a workshop before. I'd never taught
yeah, where
laughter
did you think you
yoga
even
for,
got the idea? Like, just like, because you're signing up for like, you're
yeah.
like, yeah, interested. So you must be like following people like, oh, okay, how can I tell people in
Yeah.
my local community about it? Like, was it just,
So it was mostly through word of mouth. So people had heard that I was doing this kind of work and research, and I had some introductions from people that I'd known, and somebody was looking for a little workshop for their board meeting conference or something, and they're like, "Can you do a little opener for us?" And I said, "Sure." And then I figured it out after I agreed to this job, but it just kind of ripped the band-aid off and showed me that I was good at it and that I was capable of it. I'd never written a meditation before. I mean, it was all very new and
yeah, what
I
did
I
you do in
figured it
that
out.
first one? Like, what did you like? This is, what was the session about?
It
Or like,
was um it was mostly about helping people, which is the kind of the theme of everything that I do, but helping people cultivate more positive emotion and teach them that they have agency in being able to change their emotional states in the moment. So I brought them through laughter yoga, which is the best if you've never heard of it. And
it's
then
been a while. Like, I heard about it a long time ago. I
yeah.
haven't heard much about it recently.
It's the best. I love it so much. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's based on the idea that the body doesn't know the difference between a real or fake laugh. So if you mimic laughter in your body, it becomes real very quickly. And it's just so much fun, especially in a group. So I brought people through a bunch of those practices. And then I did what I knew and I guided people through a visualization. What I now know is probably closer to a hypnosis session. To help them revisit a happy memory in their lives and cultivate that positive emotion that they got from that memory and carry it into the rest of their day and set the tone for their day. And that was it. And I got, $75 for it, I think. And it's like, cool, I got paid for my first gig as a brain training specialist. And
And is that what
yeah,
you like called yourself?
I can't remember what I called myself in the beginning. I think I might have called myself a resilience specialist. Um, I don't really remember, but it got me started and it got me trusting that that's what I loved and that's what I enjoyed to do. Because like I said, with high school, I saw the impact that I was able to have on helping people realize that they could change their experiences and change their circumstances. And that kind of fed into this work as well. Because I think it's really amazing to see people become empowered or empower themselves by realizing that they're capable of lifting themselves up within a matter of seconds.
Love that. So then you sort of got offered this thing like, yes, I can do that. And
Mm-hmm.
then you started to put yourself out there like, oh, I can lead a
Yeah.
workshop for your team, your community,
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and did that then continue to build into like what you were doing now? Or like, Yeah. And like also how did you end up in New York? Did you ever end up like
Yeah.
really making a try again at being an actor, or did you stay in this lane?
That's a funny question. So I did those 3 shows in Hershey, and at that point, by the time I did the first show, it's my favorite show in the entire world, Spring Awakening. It was a dream role, and by the time we got to our performance, I was like, I have to do this for my whole life. I don't know why I ever questioned wanting to do anything else. I have to do this, and so I started thinking about making the move to New York. I continued saving up money, working at the tax firm, doing these workshops, and did a couple more shows there, and then I moved in December of 2019.
Oh,
So, so I had
wow.
like 2 to 3 months. I also definitely got COVID in February before we knew what it was. So I was sick for all of February. And then the world shut down. So I never got to audition when I first moved here, which was the idea. I was going to move. I was going to get settled for a couple of months, and then I was just going to hit the ground running and start auditioning. So obviously that didn't happen. But during the shutdown, I realized that a lot of people were struggling, everyone was struggling. And I started to see that I feel like these tools could be useful for people to be able to lift themselves up, to be able to self-soothe and regulate in the midst of so much in uncertainty and so much pain. And so I developed some online courses at that point and took my business online. And I did some test groups. I made 2 programs that were really robust, like 6-week long, live on Zoom and video teaching kinds of courses to help people really change their brain and body's response to stress, build resilience, build inner resources, get in touch with their goals, and learn how to inspire themselves and really start aligning their lives with how they wanted to feel. And so I did a program for actors specifically, and I did a program for the general public, and they were very, very successful. They did really, really well.
And
And I wanted
because yeah, like you're like, oh, I brought my business online. Like to me, it sounds like you're still somewhat in beginner stages. Like you've done
yeah,
workshops and stuff like that, and especially, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'll offer online courses. So how
yeah,
did you get the word out then to like, have people sign up?
yeah. So it's a great question. I did a lot of word of mouth. I did a test group for the actors and the non-actors, and that really got
But where did you find the people when you said word of mouth? Like,
those.
would you reach out to friends like that were fellow actors?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
hey, I'm
yeah.
going to do this offering,
I mhm.
got
So I reached out to people in my community. The theater community is so small, so I was able to get some Broadway actors and people who are actively working in the industry to get on board. And I tapped into the communities that I had and just asked people if they wanted to do this little test group of this program that I hadn't even built yet. I built it week by week also.
And by test group, was that like, were they even paying or just like, hey, well, you
No,
guys got
it
it?
was totally
So that's when they're
free.
like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Will
Hmm.
you come on this journey with me while I've figured it out? Like,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you're going
yeah,
to love it. It's going to help you. Like, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so I decided that I was going to do it kind of like the first workshop that I'd ever done. It was like, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to tell people publicly that I'm committing to this, and then I'm going to figure it out, because I knew I had the knowledge, I had the skills, I had the certifications. And so it was just a matter of finding a framework to really deliver this in a way that can help people transform their lives. And so from there was some word of mouth from the people who'd done it that got enough people interested in the next round of groups and things like that.
In the next one, I'm assuming you charged for.
Yes,
So you're
I
like,
did.
okay,
Yes,
got it.
yes.
I figured, I got this out. People are getting results.
Hmm.
Awesome. So wow. So the word of mouth, like, actually was word of mouth.
It was. Yes, yes, it was. Yeah.
I was
And
all like, because I'm so used to everything like online. Like, yeah.
yeah, I ran ads and it just completely bombed. Nobody
Oh,
bought
you
anything
did.
from my
Wow.
ads.
Ads.
That was very unsuccessful, but I think people just want to hear from people they trust that
Yeah.
it works. I think that's why influencer marketing is so successful too, because we're starting to recognize the value of hearing specific people that we like and trust and follow telling us what is worth what's worth our time. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
influenced all the time. I'm like, I'm not like an
Yeah.
overbuying, but yes, like a lot of the
Yeah.
things, even like the biggest investments, like my Peloton, when I bought my Peloton years
Mm.
ago, it was because I would see other people talking about how much they loved
Mm-hmm.
theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that they were, yeah, like people that I was like engaged with, whether I
Mm-hmm.
knew them in person or just like, wow, this person, I love how they live their life. And it's like, that's a huge purchase that
Yeah.
if I hadn't seen real people saying how much they loved it, I don't know if I,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and I've loved mine every day since.
Yes.
um, uh, okay, so you're in lockdown, you offer these
Mhm.
courses, and then yeah, do it a second time or whatever, being paid. And so like
Mhm.
I'm assuming that it just has continue evolving since then.
So I actually, those courses no longer exist. I shifted my focus at that point then to I realized that there were a lot of people who wanted this work, but it was just an inaccessible price point for so many people. Um, so at that point, I started transitioning to offering one-off workshops to people in the public, putting those programs on pause. They were fantastic programs, but they really needed a lot of reworking to make it more accessible time-wise, accessible in terms of uh, flexibility for different people's brains. I mean, everybody's brain works differently. And I really approached it from a very rigid perspective in the beginning.
Mm.
And I recognize that now. And so I wanted to revamp it and create something that was more um I don't know, adaptable to people. So in the meantime, I'd been doing a lot of workshops for organizations. I was putting myself out there for corporate companies as well.
And is that
Um,
too just like what would they call, like I was gonna say like hard, no, like like you're
Cold
just sending
emails,
out,
cold,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm like hard, thank you. I'm like, what am I saying, like
Yeah.
cold calling, but yeah, just like sending
Yeah.
out emails like, hey, I can offer a
Yep.
workshop. Wow.
Yeah. And it worked well enough to pay the bills and do what I needed to do in that
And I
way.
assume for
And
people who are like afraid to send cold emails about anything, I'm sure a lot of them you never heard back from.
so many.
And
They so
but a couple
many.
people
And it's
said yeah. Like
fine.
that's the thing. Like,
Enough
yeah.
people say yes. Yeah.
No, like that's what I have to like always, it's like, oh, it feels so hard to send a
It
cold email
is.
out there. And if you're already afraid that you're gonna get a no or no response, then
Yeah.
like, well, why not just go ahead and like
Yeah.
shift your attitude first. But it's like
Yeah.
you're like living into like, well, if you think they're gonna get a no, like why not try it out and see if like
Hmm.
whatever. And like, great, if you don't hear back, you don't hear back. Like, but
Right. It's
good.
definitely soul
Like,
sucking, but
yeah.
just like the actor space, you audition for so many roles and they're almost all going to be no's.
Yeah. It's
It's
just,
just how it
yeah.
is. But yeah, so that got me through, but it wasn't really lighting me up in the same way,
Yeah.
going into corporate organizations and talking about focus and productivity and using joy to help you be better at your work. Like I do offer workshops still in that space because there is a pretty powerful impact that it still has, but it just wasn't what I wanted. And I wanted to keep learning. So at that point, I also enrolled in grad school. So I am now, where am I in my study? So I'm on a master's to PhD track.
Wow.
I am set to get my master's in the summertime. So I'm almost done. I just have my thesis left after this
Congrats.
semester. Very early on in my grad school work, I was certified in clinical hypnosis, which just completely changed my life, changed everything about what I do and how I do my work and who I work with. And so that was at the very beginning of my studies, and I've had several years of prolonging my grad school experience. But and then I got very fascinated by clinical hypnosis and started working in that space with
And
people as well.
so first of all, what like made you step into clinical hypnosis? Is it more like just another step along, like where you started with the brain training, like stuff? And what is clinical hypnosis? Because I assume that many people like me, when you hear the word hypnosis, like,
Mhm.
like it's like maybe like, yeah, like you're totally like leave your body or something, or, and like, are being like controlled, or like you're going on a journey. It's like
Mhm.
not listening, like, okay, get up and bark, like that, like, it's like
Yeah.
we know it's like not that, but at the same time, I think that my brain goes to something like that. So someone's like dictating what I'm doing, So somehow like, great, are you like telling me a story about my life and then I'm going to like believe it? Like, yeah, what does that look like?
That's a great question. There are so many misconceptions about hypnosis. There's just so many. First and foremost, it is not mind control at all. At all. You are fully in control the entire time in a hypnosis session. And secondly, hypnotic trances are not this unique state that we have to have a specialized hypnotist to be able to access. If you have ever been driving on the highway and you kind of have a moment where you realize, I don't really remember driving the last 10 minutes, but I know I got here safely. That's hypnosis. That's a trance.
Wow.
But you also know that your subconscious mind was taking care of you. You were driving safely.
Right.
You weren't doing anything wrong. And if somebody were to beep their horn, or you got a phone call, you'd be able to come out of it at any second. You can bring yourself out of that state. We also go in and out of trance when we are absorbed in story. So if we're watching theater, or if we're watching a TV show, or even scrolling on TikTok or social media, we go into trances. The rest of the world kind of disappears a little bit. We might not hear the microwave beeping right away, and we lose track of time a little bit, but it's entirely safe. This is a natural state of consciousness that we go in and out of all the time in our lives. And so hypnosis is a modality that helps people access that state more deeply. And trance is really just focusing your attention and relaxing your mind and body. It's just a combination of focus and relaxation. And what that does is it opens up the subconscious mind to be more creative, to be more receptive to new ideas, to be more receptive to suggestions and imagery, and kind of put your rational brain aside for a little bit. You still have access to it, but it kind of allows you to be open to the transformations that you want to have. So as a practitioner, it's my job to offer suggestions based on conversations that we have. So in a session, I would ask you questions to understand your goals, what changes you'd like to make in your life, in your mind, what you're struggling with. And then from there, I will guide you through a session to help you maybe tap into your breathing, reduce your activation, relax the mind and body, and focus your attention on something. And then I'd offer suggestions based on your goals. And these are just suggestions. They are not commands. They're not demands. You have the full ability to accept or reject any suggestion that I offer. So if I were to just say to you right now, take a deep breath, you could choose not to. It's the same in hypnosis. So we think that a lot of people think that hypnosis is just like you lose full control of what's going on. You don't have any agency and all of these things are happening to you, but it's really a collaborative, creative process and you're in the driver's seat. So in a typical session, there's a lot of imagery-based work. So if somebody is struggling with audition anxiety, for example, I do a lot of work with actors using hypnosis. I might have them do some deep breathing, relax their mind and body a little bit, do maybe a progressive relaxation, kind of relaxing the shoulders and the legs and sinking more deeply into their chair. And then I might offer suggestions for imagery of what it would be like to go through an audition and have fun with it, and guide them through this imagined scenario, this possible scenario of what it would feel like to walk into an audition room feeling good. How would it feel to cultivate joy and excitement and curiosity in this audition? How could I help them, laugh more and pay attention to the parts of the experience that are good for them and that are enjoyable for them? And what that's doing is training the subconscious mind to reassociate how it feels about auditions, and it primes the mind to pay attention to those parts of the experience. And our brains act like prediction machines, and they use past experiences to inform how we feel in the future. So the more experiences my clients have of positive auditions that are fun and rewarding and successful, even if it's imagined, the more likely their brain is going to actually help them feel more joyful and excited and confident in real life.
Wow. So yeah, because before you said, even if it's imagined, I was like, reflecting back on like, right, our brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So you're like, the more experiences they have, so the more time they're taking themselves to that place of like, okay, like, and I make it so like, are you then like, okay, imagine you walk into the audition room and you see everyone else there, but you like, you're excited to be in the same room with them. Like you're changing, like, okay, they might normally be walking in and being looking around like, oh gosh, these people are better than me or that, or why am I here? So then like, you're like sort of walking them through what it would feel like. Oh, I'm confident. I see these people. Oh, I see the person from that last audition who got that one that I wanted. And I'm just so happy like that I get to be in the room with them again. Like sort of like, are you walking sort of like that sort of detailed, or just like imagine you walk in and you're confident and
It depends on the person because
right.
hypnosis is highly, highly customized. I think that is
So that's
the
like you're
most
asking them those questions beforehand, getting to really know them, and then
yeah. And I can, as I work with people ongoing, I get a sense of what kinds of techniques work best for them, whether they want sort of an open-ended, broader experience, or if they want me to guide them through every single moment, because there are some people who really resonate with it and some people who don't. And because it's so collaborative, because it's so personalized, I can really use language that can help them specifically as individuals access these experiences. And something that I often do as well, before even guiding them through this imagery, is having them reflect on a happy memory, having them reflect on a moment in which they felt confident. And that helps the body physiologically conjure up that experience of excitement or confidence or joy. And then they can carry that feeling that they're actually feeling right now into that new experience of something that would otherwise cause them stress. And that's something that people can do on their own as well. So if you want to try self-hypnosis, just take a couple of deep breaths, recall a happy memory where you felt joyful or giddy or excited, and then visualize tomorrow feeling like that. Visualize yourself going through the tasks of tomorrow feeling joyful and grateful and excited, and your brain's going to learn from that experience and start to predict that that's how you're going to feel tomorrow. So it's really powerful.
And so with that, like from that example too, if somebody wanted to like try it themselves, for example, of like, oh, okay, I have a job interview and you're nervous. And so how would I want to feel? I want to feel confident. So, okay, like let me put myself back in a memory of when I felt confident. Let me like really get back into that. And then like you're into that feeling. And then, all right, like I'm able to move from that feeling.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how that works. Yeah.
I love that because I am one of the many things I'm saying over and over again. And that's the reason the name of the podcast is Claim It, is because I feel like we are trained, I'll say on that word, to like chase these ideas of things based on what they look like and not what they feel like. So it's like, oh, we don't feel enough because we're looking at what does that look like to us? Whether that's physical or like what I have. Oh, success. What does success look like? What does being fulfilled look like? And we don't, it's unconscious that we're doing it. So we're chasing these things. And so then even once you have those things that you thought meant you would be enough or fulfilled or successful, you don't feel it because you have no fucking clue what that feels like, because you've only been thinking about what that looks like. And so I am always like, if you tap into what would it feel like to feel enough? What would it feel like, again, to feel confident?
Absolutely.
So if you ask yourself what would that feel like, and then you can tap into it, you can have the access to it so you can claim it in that moment.
Absolutely. Yes. And as I mentioned before, our subconscious minds learn from experience, and that experience is the feeling. So we have to cultivate that feeling and either install it or savor it or claim it, whatever language we want to use. And then that's where the transformation is going to happen, because if we don't feel it, then it's never going to come to fruition.
Yeah. It's like you can hit all of those things that you've dreamt about and worked so hard, and you might have a glimmer of like, wow, okay, I did it. But then it's like, oh, well, what's next? Or this isn't this, like, cause you like don't have the sustaining feeling. Cause it's like, oh, okay, well, now let me work on this thing next.
And that's, I think, something that's really important and helpful to keep in mind with the field of positive neuroplasticity that I mentioned before, which really informs a lot of my work. It's all about taking the positive moments that we have of, yes, I made it. Yes, I have this thing, and allowing it to change us, because so many times in our lives, the positive moments just, they happen, they're nice, and then they pass us by and we go on to focusing on what we're stressed about. But if we put our focused attention on what it feels like to really celebrate that moment and amplify that feeling and ask ourselves, what am I feeling in my body right now as I am feeling excited and happy and accomplished? That's going to prime our brains to start to notice that feeling even more. And it will help us carry that sense of trust that it's coming again as we move through the challenges that we face in our lives.
Love that. So interesting. Yeah. It's interesting because like have done so much work in educating yourself in like these process. And I'm someone that I feel like it's just been like, I want these things for my life. So how can I make them happen? You know, so it's like when I'm teaching people, it's from this like, so it's just interesting when I hear like, oh yeah, that's like what I do with like daily acknowledgement or celebrating the small wins every day. And like how we feel like, yes, like whatever that tiny thing is. And so it's like funny. It's like, oh yeah, like that's what I do without realizing I was doing it. It was just me again, this commitment to I'm alive. I want to enjoy my life. Life is hard. Being a human is hard. And it's magical. Like, so how can we like tap into more of that? So, wow.
And that,
okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that just proves how intuitive this work is. It's not like we're forcing anything unnatural or any, you know, you naturally savor and celebrate because that's part of the human experience as well. Yes, humaning is hard, but the fact that you intuitively cultivate this joy and gratitude and celebration means that the science just backs up what already is. It just backs up what already exists. So I look at things from a very analytical perspective, and it helps me understand how to do these things better. But there are so many people that just do it naturally because it is a natural part of our experience.
Yeah, love that. And as you were explaining the like hypnosis process, I mean, what it felt like to me was sort of a like almost like guided meditation / visualization like that. And so is that, I mean, not to like minimize it, but it's like, does that help people to more understand it of like, yeah, because again, I think the word hypnosis can be like, it's exciting. It's exciting and also somewhat like, what the hook? Like,
yes, definitely. So hypnosis is basically a highly customized, much deeper guided meditation with a goal. Especially when you're working with a practitioner. And if if we think about the meditations that we're familiar with, there's mindfulness kinds of meditation where you're just paying attention to what is, and then there's visualization based meditations out there. Visualization meditations are more closely informed from hypnosis than mindfulness. So it's not scary. I know that the word is very scary, and there was a really fascinating study on it. I don't remember where it was done, but they essentially guided people through a hypnosis, and they put them into two different groups. They told one of the groups that it was hypnosis, and they told the other group that it was a guided relaxation exercise. And it was exactly the same thing. And the people who knew that it was hypnosis had more effects. They had more benefits from it because even though they were afraid of it, they knew that it was powerful. And I just think that is so fascinating.
Totally. That makes sense. Like the intention of it. Because if somebody's like, okay, I'm signing up for relaxation, then they're going into it with this like, great, I'm wishing to be more relaxed at the end of it. But the hypnosis, like, it's like something's going to happen. And like, you know what I mean? Like it does, like, even if it's not hypnosis to blah, 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 like get your dreams or whatever the thing is, but it's like, like it does, like you're going in with that intention of
that it's going to change something.
This is going to open something.
But it works. It's amazing. And there's so much fear around it. And I really want to destigmatize how people feel about it because it is so empowering. I've been on both sides of the hypnosis experience. I've been under hypnosis with practitioners many times. And it makes me feel so empowered because it feels like I'm making a choice to accept all of these things, all of these ideas, all of these suggestions for myself as a way to help myself feel better. And it doesn't feel like I'm being controlled. It feels like I'm given the choice to support myself even more with ideas I couldn't have ever thought about before. And it's incredibly empowering, and it's a tool that we can then use on our own. Self-hypnosis is very, very powerful. And that's the basis of the practice that helped me recover from chronic illness. So once people understand the mechanisms of it, they can change their own lives however they want. And I think that's just really amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And it's interesting, like words too, because again, like something that I utilize in my own life and then was using in courses and like with clients, I would be like, daydream. Let's dream about, like you want. Really then come to find out when more people start using the word visualization, I was like, oh, I guess I've been using visualization my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then sometimes still I will go back and forth. Like I can like knowing that that word is even that word visualization can feel too
Mhm.
like off-putting to some people. So I will be
Yeah.
like, let's just play with thinking about, or let's just,
Mhm.
like let yourself, because some people won't even allow themselves to like, I don't know, visualize this, that, like, I don't even know what that, like, no,
Yeah.
everything's wrong. So I can't even like, so it's like, or they just don't like the word visualization sounds too, whatever. Like that was me too, like where I can even like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's too
Yeah.
spiritual or something like.
That's how I felt about hypnosis. I mean, I'd been doing guided visualization practices that started with focused attention and relaxation, and then introducing suggestions for experiences for years before I started getting trained in
You're like,
hypnosis. I didn't realize that's exactly what I was doing. And I was almost doing it correctly based
yeah,
on based on these practices. And I resisted the concept of hypnosis
I know.
so much in the
Like I'm
beginning too.
now
I was
like,
like,
oh, maybe I want to study hypnosis because it seems like I already do a lot
right,
of that
right.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. I want to get to the questions to ask everybody, but when you were talking about back when, you got the diagnosis and started doing the brain training, but also like in that place of like reading the reviews and that I was getting emotional because again, like I've had friends and just people that I know in recent years getting like struggling with debilitating stuff that is yet to be diagnosed or is. And it's like, I know how hard it is for them and everybody's experience is different and stuff too, but it's like trying to like say, but you gotta like try like and not give into the my body is like broken. I'm done. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
stay in bed all day, every day. No, I can't get up and walk. No, I can't like whatever. Like, what do you have any ideas or tips for like trying to like share with these people these ways of like, because back like again, my experience is totally different. I have different than what you had. I have different than what these people have. I don't know
Mhm.
exactly, but also like I know what it feels like to be in so much pain and have no energy and like that feels miserable. But I found ways again because I chose to live that for me, it's like it feels like taking a walk feels impossible. But I noticed if I would
Mhm.
get on an elliptical machine, it would be miserable. I would be moving at like a snail. But then after 15 minutes, I would feel this total shift in my body. So like I would
Mhm.
have this force of like, no, it feels like I can't do anything. But
Yeah,
when I like push through it, not push myself to like
of course. Yeah.
whatever, but like I would remember like having these windows of like it feels like you can't do anything but this, or like what can you be excited about, what can you like finding these joy and the passion, like yeah, like it's so hard to try to like not be like I don't believe you and no you're blah blah blah, like
Mhm.
it's like I know it sucks and like come on, can you try to like try something, like try to get
Yeah.
out of bed, like or even watch
Yeah.
something that brings you joy. Even it's like in some ways it's like a like no, life is miserable and this is it. And
Yeah. I think that something it's so hard. It's especially when there's other people that you love around you experiencing it, because to some degree we have to be the ones to decide that it's time to change or it's time to make changes.
yeah, like we
Something
can't
that
make it for them.
right. And it's so devastating to see in front of us. I've seen that with many people that I love as well. And for me, I think something that you touched upon was kind of like the identity of being sick. I really leaned into that when I was very, very sick. That was my whole identity. That was me. That was a part of me, because I felt like I had to connect it to who I was in order to accept it, in order to make sense of it. And then it was so hard to get out of that identity. Um, but even just the shift in language of understanding like what words can do to our bodies. If we say I am sick, I am broken, my body doesn't work for me, etc. That's reinforcing to our minds that we are under threat, that there is something wrong, and that's going to perpetuate to some degree. I mean, of course everybody has different experiences, but it's going to continue to perpetuate this idea that we're stuck in this, and it's going to make it even harder to find ways to bring ourselves out of it, or bring ourselves to a mindset that can help us cope with it if it is incurable. Of course, there's so many things that people live with and are not able to get out of. But I think something that really helped me and that has helped a lot of people that I work with, is just understanding some of the agency that we have to help us not necessarily recover, but to help us feel 1% better in the moment. That's something that I always talk about. It's like, we might be in pain, we might be tired or struggling or suffering, but there's always something that we can do right now to help us feel 1% better. So for me, I have a fidget toy under my desk. I've been playing with that. That always helps me feel just a little bit better. It could be taking a deep breath. It could be just stretching in place. It could be having a sip of water, or going to the bathroom, or having a snack, or turning on funny videos of our favorite TV shows bloopers and making ourselves laugh a little bit, and just understanding that we don't necessarily have to do all the work right now to get 100% better, but we can do something at all times to feel 1% better. And that really got me through a lot of the hard days. And I really leaned on meditation in that time when I didn't have the tools and the brain training work available to me yet. I spent a lot of time just like finding ways to self-soothe in the moment, watching bloopers, playing with my cat, doing whatever I could. And that was really, really helpful to just shift my attention to something that could support me. Another thing that really helped me get out of that rut was moving away from language of I'm sick to language of I'm healing. It doesn't diminish the conditions that people have. It didn't diminish the fact that I was still suffering and still in pain, but it gave me just a little twinge of hope that like I was moving forward. I was getting 1% better. I was feeling a little bit better in each moment. And yeah, it's really hard. And I don't want people to take this the wrong way and think that and it's not anyone's fault for being sick. It's not your fault for being uncomfortable or in pain. And yeah, it's a hard, nuanced conversation because there's no blame going on here. But I do also think that we have a lot of agency in helping ourselves soothe, at least through the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that 1% thing. And I think, again, like for me, I think because I had that experience where I did then like really got close to before I even had a diagnosis of that I had like changed this whole like, like in my mind of like, okay, this is it. So even when I finally, at that point, even without a diagnosis, but when I finally did, for me, like acceptance is a big part of my life for whatever it is. Right. And there's like a chapter in my traffic where it's like, people don't like the "it is what it is" phrase, like, but that honestly phrase has made a big impact. Like, I'm stuck in traffic. Okay, this sucks. I'm annoyed. I'm going to be late, whatever. I'm stuck in traffic. And like, so how can I then like not be hating the fact that I'm stuck in traffic? So for me, I think that is a lot of the way I dealt with my symptoms and when I did have, like, it took me, years to figure out things that did work for me. And so now I do have it, but my symptoms are not flaring all day, every day. It's like, I have a different capacity as a lot of people. Some days things really flare up, but like, I do a lot of things to take care of myself. Again, like my capacity is different, but it's not like, I have this. It's just like, yeah, that's a fact about me. I have this thing. And so how am I going to try to take care of myself? How am I going to feel better? How am I going to show up for this thing that I want to do? Oh, maybe I can't do that today. And like, again, and not like having this like resentment for it, but just, this is it. This is what's happening in my body. But also it didn't mean like I was like I didn't tie my identity to it. It was just like, okay, that's part of my life experience that I'm taking with me. And I want to freaking enjoy my life, whatever way that is. If it's, I really feel terrible today, so I'm going to let myself watch an entire show with no shame and not being like, I hate this. My life sucks because I'm stuck in bed, but like, that's my today. Great. So how can I make it work for me? Like, what can I do instead of being like living in that resentment of it, I guess.
Yeah. And from what I'm hearing from that, it sounds like, I mean, a lot of the language around accepting what is, allowing what is about holding space for what we're facing, but neutralizing our emotional experience around it and softening the resistance towards it. Because when we're trying to fight our bodies and when we're trying to fight things that are hard or traffic or getting frustrated about things, that's adding more activation in our bodies and it's making the experience of this thing that's hard even harder. And even like you said that when your symptoms are flaring up, you you ask yourself, okay, can I watch this TV show that makes me feel better? Again, that's separating the emotional response or your emotional experience from your experience of symptoms, and acknowledging that like I can be in pain and I can laugh, or I can be in pain and I can focus on something that makes me feel good. And I think that that's so important. And even now, I mean, I've learned this over the last several years, but especially this year, I've had other chronic illnesses come into my life, and it's been very challenging and frustrating because my brain comes back to, oh no, are we going to be stuck with this again? Are we going to have to deal with this again? But I've also been moving into that sense of acceptance and separating my identity and my emotions from this challenge. And it's like, okay, this hurts, but my right pinky feels good. The tip of my nose feels okay. There's other parts of my experience that are neutral or positive. And it's like, I don't know, I have endometriosis. So I have a lot of abdominal pain. And that can be pretty debilitating. And so, I can have pain in my abdomen, but also be cozied up in a really, really soft, fluffy blanket. And putting my focused attention on that experience allows me to change my emotional experience and my emotional reaction to the discomfort that I'm experiencing. And that, I think that's so important to recognize, that we can hold space for both.
Yeah. And that's what, I said that it is what is, which is a part of my mantra, but it's also a big thing. It's like, for me, it's like, this is what's happening. So like, I see it from like, it's like, I don't enjoy the phrase, this is happening for me.
Yeah.
That's great in some circumstances, that helps you. But for me, it's more usually, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. So it just allows me to face it. So this is what's happening. Like, wow, my symptoms were flared up today. I mean, that sucks. That's what's like, I'm going to have to cancel things. My day is not going to look how I wanted. And this is what's happening. So then it's like able to like face it all without that, you're saying like energetic emotion, and then be like, okay, so then, all right, so what does that then look like? So let me, like I said, let me nurture myself by, I'll stream this whole show today. I'll do this. Like, it sucks. Like, so it's not like I'm telling myself, oh, these emotions don't matter, and I'm only finding the good in things. Like, this is what's happening. So what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? Do I want to live in, again, like adding the resentment and annoyance and this, like, it's like, sure, you might have that a little bit. And then like, okay, and this is what's happening. I'm surrendering to what is. And so what am I going to do to work with this?
Yeah. I love that. It sucks. And what else? I love that. A phrase that I use in a lot of my work is also like, what else is true? So this is true. This is happening. This is valid. It sucks. It's awful. And what else is true? It's beautiful outside. The sun is shining. And it's not about toxic positivity. It's not about diminishing the very hard things that we have to deal with. It's about holding space for all of it and allowing ourselves to recognize all of it, because we have such a tendency to naturally, of course, focus on the thing that's hard, because our brains are trying to protect us and help us survive. But being able to allow all of the elements of our experience, recognizing that my abdomen hurts and my arms feel great in this cozy shirt or whatever, Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I could talk to you forever.
I know.
I'm gonna let me get to. No, seriously, I'm loving this conversation. This could go on forever. But okay, what is a go-to to raise your joy levels? So that could be like, oh, you're having a shitty day. You do have maybe the stomach stuff happening. And again, it's not like I'm not allowed to feel the pain or this, but like, and okay, why not? Like, what can I do to bring myself some joy?
Okay. First and foremost, I do laughter yoga. I do it most mornings for 60 seconds every morning in the bathroom mirror. But if I'm just like really in need of some joy, I will just go into a room where no one else is and just fake some laughter. A really simple one is just counting to 10 with ha's. So if you just go ha, 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 and I'm already laughing for real, and just go all the way up to 10, that automatically just helps me access pure joy in my body. Something else that I love to do, I'm thinking in terms of like modalities, but I'm trying to bring myself beyond that. Something else that I love that just helps me lift myself up no matter what. I have a mini trampoline in my office, and I jump up and down on my mini trampoline, and I listen to music that I loved when I was a teenager. And that just brings me right back to dancing around in my bedroom when I was 14 years old. And it's so fulfilling and regulating, and it makes me feel so good. And I also love watching bloopers of my favorite comedies, because just watching other people laugh immediately makes me feel better.
Love it. Okay, ask everybody to apply this phrase to their life. What is easiest for you is not always what is best for you. It's like a way you might be naturally wired. So what is easiest for me is blank. What is best for me is blank. It's not necessarily
Ooh.
harder, just what is
Okay.
easiest for me.
So this is going to be a contradiction. What is easiest for me is making things hard. What is hard for me is finding ease in what I'm doing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I mean, I don't love that for you.
Right.
I don't love that for you. But you have the awareness. You're working.
Yes, we're working through it. The word for 2023 is ease. So we're working on
I
it.
gotcha. I'm always like, how can I approach this with freedom, ease, and fun?
Yes.
Those are like my three, like when I get like, oh, like, okay.
Yes.
All right. The last question is, the name of the podcast is Claim It. What are you claiming for yourself right now?
That's a harder question than it needs to be. Oh no. What am I claiming for myself right now? I am claiming trust. Just trust that things are gonna be what they need to be and what I want them to be and what I have always dreamed them to be.
Love it. That's actually been a big like recommitment to myself this year, is like diving back into self-trust, trusting myself and all of that. Cause yeah, the world is busy and noisy, and it can affect your mind then. And what you're telling yourself is it's the world and that's what I'm always like. That's like, yeah, the world and our minds are very noisy places. And
yes, so much noise.
Awesome. I have so enjoyed chatting with you, and we'll definitely make sure to like include links to wherever you want to direct people in the notes.
Awesome.
And yeah, which by the way, I didn't even say, but yeah, I like just stumbled upon one TikTok of hers at some point last year, and I don't even remember what it was. And from just that one TikTok, like then I looked at her profile and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to this person.
So wild.
Which I don't do. That's not how I get all my guests, from just randomly finding one video of theirs
on the internet.
It usually is a longer process of inspiration or whatever.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to go back in my feed or something and see if I can find which one it was and send it to you.
Yeah. I want to know.
All right. Thank you so much.